welcome back to another edition of Inside Great Lakes Sailing. My name is Greg Norman, your host. Well, we're back from Chicago and all those folks who sail GP. And you don't get a chance very often to go all the way to Lake Superior, but we're going to go to Marquette, spend a little bit of time with Brian and Kirsten Van Wieren, who started the UP Sail Company. And if you're not sure what that is, it's a charter company. So if you want to learn to sail or learn to be a charter captain, or if you want to go on a couple of day excursion with the folks up there, they have all kinds of programs that you should really take a look at. We're going to spend some time with them. It's also an interesting story about how a couple gave up corporate to kind of come backwards and just do something they love, which in this turn is sailing. They have a 26-foot Colgate you can learn on, and they have a very unique boat. They'll let them explain it, but there's only one or two 46-foot boats built at the time, and I think it's when you see the pictures of it, I think you'll find it to be pretty interesting. If that's enough, we've checked in with our favorite Lake Erie sail racer, Trey Sheehan, who has said we're kind of catching up with the BOD. They had a great Tartan 10 finish. They won all but 3 races down in Detroit at Bayview's BOD program that they had a couple of weeks ago. And we talked to Trey about the Cleveland race week, which is going on right now. And we also caught up with him on the Mills race, which is the overnight to Put in Bay. And we kind of had a conversation with him. We're going to keep track of the Hooligan program and their T52, the J70. They've got a Melgus 32. They're pretty involved. They both have the Bostons aboard, the famous Canadian sailors, along with Curtis Florence. So we're going to kind of talk with him from Cleveland, and I think you'll enjoy that. One of the cool things this past weekend, and we're going to catch up with these guys over the next week, but last week at the U.S. Sailing's Youth and Match Racing Championships at Sheboygan Yacht Club in Wisconsin, we had a local group of Michael Kirkman, Dougie Cowan, Sophie Packett, and Ryan Hexter. You're not going to believe this, but they picked up a standing ovation for the Nick Scandor Sportsman Award trophy. They were 4th overall in the race, but they ended up getting this trophy because they were the nicest kids there. We're going to talk to them a little bit about the race and match racing. Dave Perry was in town, and they ran up against some pretty good racers. Chapman Pearson and his team with Luke Woodworth, Samantha Walsh, and Tommy Sitzman, who won the overall. We've got local kids obviously banging at the highest levels in 4th place overall, but to come away with a trophy for sportsmanship is pretty terrific. We hopefully will get a chance to talk with the race organizer and then the kids Dougie and some of the kids that were part of that, Mr. Hexter, and we'll figure out how we can catch up with them over the next week. But taking 4th match racing and then being given the award for the Corinthian Award for being the outstanding, group of young folks that were there racing, I think it's a pretty good testament to their parents and certainly their yacht clubs. So we're going to get back to UP sailing a little bit. Welcome back. We're talking to Brian and Kristen Van Wieren, who are owners of the Upper Peninsula Sailing Company. And there's a whole interesting story we're going to get into. But essentially, if you want to learn to sail in Lake Superior, in Marquette, around the Munising area, you go see Kristen. You certainly go see Brian. So how long have you been in business? And kind of give us a bit of a short synopsis of what the company's about.
Yeah, so we opened June 1st, so we're brand new here. We're an ASA certified school, and we offer 101 through 106, and we do charters, sunset, day sails, week-long trips. So we're brand new business.
Of all the places to start a sailing company, you wouldn't think that Lake Superior would be the ideal spot for 1,000 reasons. I'm thinking of coldness of water and the proximity of where you are. Obviously, Marquette's a beautiful place, and you've got all of the beauty of the Upper Peninsula that it offers. But why there of all places?
So there's nothing like UP Sailing Company in anywhere actually in the UP. And the more time we spent here, we realized there was a need for that. And when we got involved with the Marquette Yacht Club, there's a junior sailing program that's quite active and kids classes, but nothing for adults. And so a lot of people came to us and said, hey, we have a lot of people interested in taking sailing lessons here, but there's nothing between Bayfield and Traverse City. So we found that surprisingly, yes, even though it's cold, good Upers also like to sail and visitors as well. So it was a great fit.
Maybe also point out that both Munising and Marquette have really nice sheltered bays that
Yes.
allow for some safety in maybe rougher waters.
Yeah, even with like the good north winds inside the Marquette Harbor, both harbors, the upper harbor or the lower harbor, we have pretty good protection that we can get some nice sailing in and not be battling into those huge swells.
What's the percent? I'm just curious. What's the percentage of brand new sailors who are taking up for the first time versus now? You guys you offer overnights and a little more different kinds of trips. What's the percentage between one and the other?
I would say it's right now 50-50 between new students. We've had a lot of students even since June 1st. You just taught for what, 11, 12 days straight. So it's probably 50-50 between brand new students, either local people or people who are traveling in to take classes, and people who are interested in doing sunset sails for celebrating an anniversary or just a special treat, with a couple or with their family.
What's the thread as teachers? What's the thread with new students? What do you find their jargon to be? Is it just a lifelong goal? Is it something they wanted to try? And then the follow-up question is, of the beginners, how many come back, or how many do you know that end up? What's the retention rate?
Well, a lot of people, it's lifetime goal. We also have a lot of people that ended up buying a sailboat, and they're like, we don't know how to sail, but we've always been intrigued by it.
So they buy the boat first and then come to us and learn how to sail it.
Right.
Actually, we've had a lot of that.
A lot of that this year. Or a lot of spouses of a sailor. They're like, yeah, I can't learn from my spouse. It's just not a good situation. So I'll come and learn the basics with you and then continue on their sailing. A real popular option that is taking place is a lot of people sign up for our 101, 103 combo. And so it's a basic keel boat. So most of those people, some never stepped foot on a boat before. Mm-hmm. We get them sailing on our Colgate 26, show them the basics, tacking, jiving. We go through how to heave to the boat, also crew overboard drills. And then we move up to our Bennett 46 for some basic coastal cruising, where we just introduce navigating, how to read that chart and correspond with what we see on the chart to what we see on land.
Anchoring.
We
spend a lot of time on the boats, only a minimal time in classroom. So.
Yeah. Over a 4-day class, we might only spend about 4 hours in classroom time. The rest of 4 8-hour days is on the water.
When you mentioned the 101 and 103, those are Coast Guard certified classes that they're taking. Is that correct?
So American Sailing Association classes.
Okay. Yep. Okay. But does that also give them, sometimes if they want to bear boat in Florida or they want to go other places, that certification will make it a little bit easier for them to go rent boats in other places?
So that one doesn't. They from 103 they could move on to 104, which is a bareboat class, and then we have actually had people contact us who our next 104 class, people own their own boats, have been sailing for a very long time, but they want to go charter in the Caribbean or somewhere, so they come and take that certification with us. Yep.
If you watch YouTube and there's all of these people in these channels, everybody's got a bathing suit and a palm tree, and we've only been sailing for 3 weeks. We just bought our boat and we're going to go across the Atlantic Ocean. Sometimes I see these things. It just scares me as teachers. I mean, obviously safety is a critical aspect because you cannot tame Mother Nature, but I wonder sometimes if they really know what they have when they get moving, and sometimes you got to wonder why there's not more accidents.
Yeah. I mean, for us, safety is key. We both come from safety and backgrounds and stuff like that, and bringing that onto the water. And then it's also a lot of teaching people. We're constantly going through scenarios. Yeah. This happens. Oh, you lose a shroud. What should we do? You lose a forte. What should we do?
Right.
And just try and make people more prepared. Hopefully we don't have too many disasters out there.
I'll say too, we spend a lot of time doing crew overboard drills, and we don't tell them when it's happening. And we've had classes out when it's sporty, we'll call it. But Brian will just throw the buoy, over and say, crew overboard, and they have to spring into action, and you make sure that they all practice it from every position on the boat, whether they're trimming sails or whether they're on the helm, to give them that real life experience, right? Even in 3-4 foot waves, that's probably when you're going to experience it, not when it's, calm flat anyway.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get specific on cost, but what for your 101, 103, what's the cost for classes? What's the cost for overnights? Give us kind of an idea where the cost factors are.
Yeah, so 101 I think is right around $650 a person for a single person. If people book together, there's a discount as it goes up. We'd like to keep it to 4 people just so it's, low instructor to student ratio. I think the 101, 103 is somewhere in the just over $1,000. And again, that gets cheaper if you bring more people with you. And then 104, I think is in that general range too. We do offer private classes too. So we have an individual right now who wanted to take ASA 101 by himself, have the complete boat. That's a little bit more, obviously, since it's not booked out to be shared with others. But we've heard from people giving us feedback that our prices are reasonable. So, I mean,
And we also do lessons on people's own private boats. Somebody just purchased a boat and they're not quite sure on how everything works on it. So we'll jump on board for a day with them and go through some of the ASA stuff, but also just teach them how to sail their own boat.
Yeah, I will say too, we spend a lot of time docking because I think that's an underrated skill. I think we've all been there. But by the end of especially the 101, 103, our Bennett 46 is a big girl. And Brian has those students docking with no problem, our big boat, even backing it in. So, even that, I think a lot of classes don't spend enough time on docking, and it's a big fear for new students for sure.
You guys have a Colgate 26 open cockpit teaching boat. It's a wonderful sailboat to learn on. It's forgiving, and at the same time, I've been on a number of them. I'm not really familiar with the Bennett 46, which is, I think you brought it up from Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct. The Bennett 46 is a custom built boat out of Wilmington, North Carolina by Bennett Brothers Yachts. And there was only 2 of them made back in 1994 and 96 or 98.
Okay. Yeah. Would there be could you compare it to something? I'm not saying Catalina or Tartan, but is it similar to anything?
It's, I'd say, it's a Bruce Merrick design.
Okay.
So she's pretty sporty, has a real flat bottom, trailing keel and everything. She's a fast blue water sailor, probably comparable to some.
No, I asked the question.
Like Cambria or.
I asked the question about the old joke. It was in the 70s and 80s. It was a cruising racer or a racing cruiser.
Yeah.
I have a 34 O'Day, and downwind it's a submarine. It doesn't. Upwind it's an unbelievable boat. I have a 60-inch television on it, and it's a very comfortable place to stay and the rest of it. But it is not a racer in any way, shape, or form. And the last thing you want to do is go downwind on a boat if you have to, because you could be going 9 knots into the wind, and you'd be lucky to end it anyway.
The good thing for us is Subaru needs her sweet spot is probably 20 knots or so of wind. I mean, it takes quite a bit, obviously, more than the Colgate to get her moving. So it's nice that we actually have those 2 options too, being on Lake Superior, because contrary to popular belief, sometimes we don't have enough wind on Lake Superior. That's a very common problem. I don't want to let the secret out, and betray our Yukon friends, but Lake Superior is actually very calm in the summer, a lot of times. But at least it's nice for us. We have both options.
Well, what used to be Shira's Pool out at the island, where the harbor is now, I grew up sailing there, and I also grew up swimming in that pool and in that part of the bay. And I can attest to the fact that there's plenty of times when there's not wind, and it's hard to explain that, but that's really true. First, I got a question for you. You grew up in Hudsonville. So I understand the sailing part of being in Hudsonville. It's, you're obviously like Michigan. You end up in Colorado, you go to Colorado State. What does a 19-year-old zoology major think he's going to do for a career? That was that. I like to get into the minutia a little bit, but I'm just curious because with your background, you have all kinds of technical background, engine background. You're a 100-ton captain, Coast Guard captain. But what is it that you thought zoology was going to do for you as a sailor? I'm curious.
Well, actually, I was looking into studying fish,
Okay.
and so but Colorado State offered a great option at the time when I did apply to schools, and then after my years in Colorado, I seen that I couldn't be that far away from water too long. So the original goal was to go through and work on my master's and PhD and do research or teach at a university level. But then I came back to work with family in the transportation industry.
And the first boat you bought was an Islander 40?
Yeah, Islander 40, Doug Peterson design. Great boat, had it for 20 some years. Did eight, or no, sorry, 6 solo Max with her, 1 solo Port Huron Mac, and 1 solo Trans-Superior race with it. And then 3 solo Max with the Bennett 46.
Well, and Kristen, too, Fowlerville is really close to a lot of big bodies of water. You're obviously a Grand Valley girl, so you have a health science major from Grand Valley, so I understand that part of it. But your first boat, having only taken a couple of lessons, if I'm not mistaken, was a Beneteau 305.
That's right. Yeah.
Who takes 2 lessons and goes out and buys a 30-foot sailboat? That's crazy.
This girl, yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
funny, ironic. I signed up for ASA 101, which is four classes, and I missed the last 2 because I bought my boat. So I was out sailing by myself. This was in Chicago, and I remember sailing out by myself, and here comes my instructor and my other peer students coming the opposite way, and he waved, "Hey, we missed you in class," and I said, "Yeah, I probably won't be back." And yeah, not many people do that. I don't know if I can recommend that, but probably the best, craziest decision I've ever
Is
made.
it fair to say that both of you are impulsive?
No, I think more so assertive. When we know what we want, we go after, we get it.
Yeah.
We GSD, we get it done.
Well, the reason I'm asking that question is you have a lot of people coming to you for the first time wanting to learn, and you're obviously not only a student, but you can teach it because you did it.
Yeah.
I think that's an important point. But it does get me to the bigger point. You guys kind of talk a little bit how you met and how this kind of melded in, because I think that's a cool story.
Yeah, funny. So we actually both of our boats, we had them in Holland, but at different marinas. And the sterns of our boats were probably like 300-400 yards apart. But we had never really seen each other. And I guess Brian had seen me, but I was coming in one day from a sail by myself, docking the boat, and here comes this guy walking up and asked me, "Hey, I see you sailing by yourself a lot. Have you ever thought about solo long distance, solo max stuff?" And in my head, I'm thinking, "Who are you? A creeper? You've been watching me?" And anyway, he invited me to come racing on Sears or Bennett, and eventually I did, and a good friendship turned into something more. But yeah, so many people wish that their partner loved sailing or was passionate about it too, and we are blessed and lucky that we are both beyond belief passionate about it. And then a little side bonus, Brian also had horses as a kid, and I have horses, so now we have horses together. So a sailing cowboy is probably a unicorn in the world, but here he is.
Well, you obviously have that opportunity to spend the time together and the rest of it. I don't want to say impetuous, I think that's too strong a word. Somewhere along the line, you made the decision to go into the business of sailing in the Upper Peninsula, which again, that is a bit impetuous, just based on what you know. And so, is that a hard decision, or was it because you're giving up what you had to go to something that you're not sure about? So, just talk briefly about that decision making.
Well, yeah, it was a tough decision. But as we were spending more time up here, we just grew to love the area and the people up here. Everybody's been so nice and welcoming to us. But it was a tough decision to walk away from our life down there and start something new up here, unknown. A lot of people ask, "Oh, it's so far. People are going to travel," but people are coming up to spend time. They're like, "Yeah, I've always wanted to see what the UP is, and I can do my sailing lessons too." And just to sail around the beauty, to get to sail out, out of the upper harbor past Black Rocks, towards the Huron Mountains. And it's not seeing just, the normal sand dunes or the beaches downstate. And just that splendor. Or for some of our distance trips, we can sail up to Grand Island and go past those 200-foot rock cliffs with the lighthouse up on top, and people are just in awe. We're still in awe just about every time we sail past it. So
Your favorite,
that's
Brian, do
kind of
you have a favorite bait? Is it the Menacing Bay, Grand Island, Marquette? Are they equal? Do
they all present their own little challenges, especially sailing in them.
Yeah.
The winds can get a little fluky at times when we get close to the shorelines. But probably for anchoring, I think Trout Bay is just gorgeous.
On Grand Island.
On Grand Island. There's real nice tall rock cliffs to the northwest end of the island, or that northwest end of the bay. And then you have a nice sandy beach right at the end of the bay. So I think Trout Bay is one of my favorites to come into.
all the camps east of Rock River up into the trees at the top of the hill. There's about 20 of them. 10 of them are related to me in some way. That was camp for all of relatives in Marquette that would come out. And I think I stayed there one night. They're tar shacks from, you know, if it was Appalachia, you'd have burned them to the ground because they just how bad they looked, and they still look bad. If there's a hole in the wall, because a lot of it's just outside carpet kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
On the wall, they hang a picture over the hole, so they don't have to replace the hole. You know what I'm referring to, so I get that part.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so I get it. So here's a simple question for you, Peace, with pasties, ketchup or gravy?
Ooh.
Mm.
Actually, we're split. Chicken pasties, gravy, ketchup with beef pasties.
Yep.
Okay, well, a pasty with chicken isn't a pasty, number one,
Right.
and a beef pasty without rutabaga and ketchup is I'm sorry, but you're not a Youper.
Yeah.
I jokingly talk about that because my grandmother was the head cook at Northern Michigan back in the 50s and 60s so that was just a staple of what we ate. So it's such a great place. If you don't know Marquette, I know it's kind of morphed into a real sort of destination, you know, college town. It's gotten more expensive than it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
They've lost industry and it's been replaced by a lot of what essentially my age would probably call yuppie kind of bars and those kinds of things. But it's such a beautiful place to live.
Yeah.
I'm in the ski racing business, so we spend a lot of time at Mount Marquette ski racing and
yeah.
for years. And it's just such a wonderful place to come up. And Munising has its own beauty. And I have a picture hanging in my office as you're coming around where the high school is. If you look up into the trees, you'll see what essentially is a separation where the power lines go up.
Mhm.
Now, there was an old ski jump there, and I've got a picture from 1937 for the UP. Actually, it was the Michigan High School Jumping Championships.
Yeah.
And there are 7,000 people at the bottom of the hill.
Oh, wow.
And if you know anything about the UP and the farther west you go, but a lot of Scandinavians in the middle part of the UP, as you go towards Houghton and Hancock, there was a lot of Italians and a lot of different kind of Middle European guys. But ski jumping in the 30s and 40s in the UP was unbelievable. And to think that there'd be this 7,000 people, they don't have 7,000 people that live in Munising.
No, that's at least double, I think. Yep.
Yeah, and to see this picture, which I have behind me, is a pretty cool place. It's a really fun town, and at any rate, anything you could tell us about? You know, I guess the last question is, how will we get a hold of you? I'll put your website up below you here as far as the discussion. But are you booked out for the summer? Is there still available slots? What would they do to get a hold of you?
So first, to get a hold of us, I probably would say to go to our website, the upsailingco.com. Our email is info@upsailingco.com. You can book online at our website, or call or text us. Our number is 906-202-1020. We do have still some options for classes, especially maybe later July and August, but they are filling up. We find that a lot of our sunset sales, afternoon sales, they'll probably 2 weeks or so in advance, you know, with tourists kind of trying to figure out what they're going to do. But we do still have some openings through August and into September for sure.
When do you basically stop sailing?
Right now, our booking calendar stops at the end of September. If it's beautiful or, you know, for some odd reason, we can stay open another week. We'll stretch it into first week of October, but likely that is going to be a miracle. You know how it is up here. It could be snowing then.
Right. No, I doubt that. Brian, I have just one last question for you. I'm doing the Trans-Superior in August. with
Oh,
Keith,
are you?
with Keith Dauber out of Duluth, who's the PHRF rep.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah,
do
he's a good fit.
we're gonna do a whole thing with him. He's got a J35.
If they're Taco Gacho, right?
Yeah, Papagacho, exactly. In fact,
Yeah.
I just filled out my yacht scoring profile to be for please. What should I expect coming across coming across Superior?
Oh,
I've heard horror stories and I've heard wonderful stories. I've heard, no wind and you're going to get eaten alive by bugs.
yep.
50-50 chance.
50 chance.
Okay.
When I did the last one I did it, we had great winds the whole time. I still talk about it's one of the most memorable experiences. I popped the chute out. It was by Whitefish Bay and carried my chute all the way up and over the Keweenaw.
Wow.
May you have those wins.
Yeah,
We
may
wish
you have
those for
winds,
you. Yes.
which is
For
very
sure.
normal. I mean, for that race.
Want to thank Brian and Kirsten Van Weeren for talking to us a little bit about Lake Superior sailing. And if you have an interest in that sport, in that part of the woods, certainly take it up. Marquette Yacht Club is right there on the South Shore dock, and they'll certainly be appreciative of any business we can send their way. Up next, Trey Sheehan is going to talk all there is to know about Lake Erie racing, and we're going to talk a little bit about the BOD, the Mills Cup, and then certainly he's involved this week with the Cleveland Race Week. So we'll get back with him in just a second.
Hi, welcome back. We're talking to Trey Sheehan, a Cleveland guy. We're talking to him from downtown Cleveland in his offices, and we've had a chance to cover SailGP, and we've done that the last few weeks, and we're kind of catching up with some of the guys who've been sailing in some of the other races. So we're going to talk about the BOD, we're talking about the Mills race, we're going to talk about a little bit of Cleveland Race Week, and there's some stories. But you're involved obviously in Hooligan, TP52 that you race. You're not going to be on the water with that until November. But the reality is you've been unbelievable with your Tartan 10, with your 32, Melgus, and certainly with I think a CNC 30. All right on that.
The CNC 30 is a borrowed boat, but my friend Kyle Vowles up in Muskegon is a bit of a collector of boats, and we sailed that boat down in Key West for the southernmost regatta, and it's a really fun Mark Mills design. He's done a really nice job of maintaining the boat, and he was kind enough to let us use it because we weren't sure that we were going to have a 32 in time for the Mills race. And as it turned out, everything aligned. We still had the boat stored here in Cleveland in my garage at the office, and Kyle was kind enough to let us use it for the Mills. We took both boats to Put-in-Bay and towed them over to Toledo the afternoon of the race by powerboat. We towed them up, going about 14 knots up to Toledo, and everybody's fresh and relaxed and ready to start the race. So
let's start with Bayview BOD. You had you had 12 points overall. I think you had a third place in one of the races, but you cleaned up with the Tartan 10. So my question is, talk about the race and then tell me why you like the Tartan 10 boat.
I have an affinity for the Tartan. I grew up next door in Bradenall, Ohio, to the founder and builder of Tartan, the guy who started it. My next door neighbor was his son, best friend as a kid. So the Tartan has always kind of had a soft spot in my heart. It's how I got to start sailing in the first place. And the Tartan 10 is now a 47-year-old, maybe 48-year-old design. But these boats are terrific. One Design Racing, when they came out, I'm sure that boat was probably 18 or 20 grand, 23 grand. It was an affordable, like a second car, although at that time it was probably a lot more than a second car. And today you can pick them up for a great number, not a huge dent in the pocketbook, and they limit the number of sales that you can buy each year, so you're not breaking the bank. And you work on it hard, and you spend the winter optimizing the bottom and making sure that it's in great shape. And we have a workshop here at the office, and I can, spend extra time working on that. And it's worked out beautifully. The boat it's dynamite. It's fun. Every year we're learning more and more about the boat, and you get 25 boats on a starting line. It's always fun, especially One Design. And the J70 is a little different. The Tartan 10 is a little bit slower to react. You're learning, but the class itself is really, really a lot of fun. The people are terrific. The other owners are terrific. We have a range from, I think the oldest helmsman is probably close to 70 or 75. There's great family programs. There's great women's teams. There's great kids programs. My kids love sailing the boat. I was fortunate enough to have all three of my children on board a couple of years ago. I told you about this, I think, over a period of time, and we won in North Americans with 4 Sheehans on board, which is absolutely the best kind of sailing you can ever do.
Yeah. When you've got the 52 and you're running with Curtis Florence and you're running with a couple of Bostons, is there much of a change in the attitude or where they're on the boat from a 52 down to a tartan 10?
No.
Same jobs?
Pretty much the same jobs, and all about every part of this has to be fun. I mean, yes, we might be a little bit more serious at certain regattas. We did some party regattas this winter. The Caribbean 600, we brought in a couple of extra guys that were terrific. And we, pushed the envelope. We had some problems getting the boat fixed in time, and but it's got to be fun, because this is not, you don't want to spend the money that you spend to not have a great time. And, we're a no drama program. People that don't fit the mold are gone pretty quickly. And if we're not about laughing and giggling and having a good time, both on and off the water, there's no reason for doing this.
All right. Obviously an overwhelming victory at the Bods, and you come back down for the Mills race was second.
It wasn't an overwhelming victory. We had some very, very tough competitors. Those guys.
You took out of 8 races, you were first 6 times, you took a second and third. You were 12 points. The closest guy to you was 20. So I would consider that to be a not an overwhelming win, but certainly a pretty substantial win. So,
and the same guys that we beat there came back and kicked our tails.
And we'll talk about that, because that's part of sail racing. But obviously you had a chance to
everything fell together very well for us there.
Yeah. So you had a good event here, obviously, in Lake St. Clair.
Yeah.
You obviously go back to the Toledo and the west end of Lake Erie for the Mills race. Talk briefly about that.
I love the Mills race. It's a home court race for us. I'm involved pretty heavily at Put in Bay. Family goes long and deep there. My kids grew up there. My wife and her family have businesses there. I'm very, very fond of Put in Bay. And for me, it's kind of a hometown race. We assemble the team there on Friday morning of the Mills race. We have breakfast or a late or an early lunch, and then one of my cousins tows us with the regulator over to the Toledo starting area at about 15 knots. So everybody's pretty fresh and ready to go. Otherwise, to do I think it's a 28-mile or 30-mile hike over, you'd be pretty tired. You'd have 5 or so hours of sailing upwind, and if it's light air, it's going to be. So we tow over real quick and assemble there, and we race north. And we've been very fortunate in the Melgus 32, which goes very, very well in super light air up to about 9 knots, and then that boat goes pretty well in pretty heavy air. So we've been very fortunate, and the boat loves a breeze off the wind. A couple of years ago, we were sailing somebody else's Melgus 32, and I think we did 41 miles from Toledo down to Huron, or maybe it was Sandusky. I don't remember what that race was. Did 41 miles in 2 hours and 21 minutes, which not too bad. And I think we spent about 3 or 4 minutes on our side.
That's SailGP. That slows SailGP numbers. I get that point.
Right.
What's the attraction to the Mills race?
I think there's something about there's always that kind of holy grail is to get a 32-footer to do a 75-mile track in enough time to get there by bar close. You want to be in there.
All right.
If I'm being brutally honest, I think
I appreciate your corporate honesty. That works good.
And it's always fun to get in there. And then you've got a whole day at Put in Bay where people have blocked out because they know they're not leaving the island to go to work. They've blocked out the long morning. So you get in there, and our friends at Frosty's open up and do breakfast. And, I'll call Kim Stoiber in the morning and say, hey, we're an hour or 2 out. We're an hour and a half. And she knows, am I opening early, or am I going to be on normal time? And, they throw a great party, and there's nothing better than, pictures of their Frosty beer in their mugs. And, cheap shout out to them, but and their Bloody Marys, and it is a fantastic party, and it goes all day long. And then there's a pretty good bash thrown by the Put in Bay Yacht Club and the Toledo Yacht Club, and our good friends from Toledo Yacht Club have thrown a fabulous event. And then, you know, if you do well, you end up at a dynamite awards party at the Toledo Yacht Club the next year, right before the race, Wednesday night. And you've never seen so much silver in your life. I mean, they've been doing this. Next year is going to be the 100th year for the race. And they have trophies in there that I'm sure, well, I've heard rumors that, you know, there are $100,000 pieces of silver in there that are irreplaceable. I mean, it's really, and they're so beautiful. They're beautiful trophies. It's like, you know, the America's Cup for a kid from the Midwest, I guess.
Well, the connection, then obviously the port here in the Mac is 100 years old next year. Mills, they almost started the same year.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and I'm sure each of them took 3 years or so for the war off, and you know, and then COVID, obviously. But yeah, that's exactly right. And this year, it's my understanding that the MAC race, they are going to send everybody on the short original course, 220 miler or somewhere thereabouts, I think.
Short course.
Yeah, short course. Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Then obviously you had a almost successful. You had a little bit of revenge from what happened at the BOD. And the reason we're having this conversation, we talked to you, I think in February. We're kind of doing a routine with a number of guys that are. We've got a guy doing the Great Loop, Nagy Mata. We've talked to him on a regular basis. We've obviously talked to you now. I think this is the third time. So what happens when you have this great race in Detroit and all of a sudden the guy comes back and basically skunks you down in Cleveland? That's your home waters.
It's my home yacht club, and it is it's a tough one. You know, it's tough to take it right on the teeth. It's a punch in the face, and it lets you know that you're not all that special. And on any given day, no matter how good you think you're prepared, you can always do a little better. And we learned a lesson there. I think we're going to do a lot better job getting ready for the next event. Sometimes, you know, you think, oh, one day or a couple hours of practice, you know, we can get away with this. But I think we learned a lesson there. And Scott is a fierce competitor, absolutely dynamite. Every guy on that boat is terrific. He puts together a world-class team, and I'm impressed. They took it right to us, and the truth of the matter is there were 3 other teams there that all came to play. My brother's boat was there. He's racing with my partner in the 52, John Evans, and they go at it, and they took us to task on a couple of races. I mean, it's really terrific, and you've got great teams from Vermilion. We've got dynamite teams from home, and Erica, the reigning North American champ, who's coming here to Cleveland for North Americans in, I guess it's now 6 weeks out, middle of August. We're going to race right at Edgewater for the North American Championship, and this Erica team is dynamite. So good team.
On the North American tartans, how many boats have they registered at this point? I think 60. Does that sound right?
No, can't be that big. I don't think we'll have. I would hope that we'll see 30 boats.
Okay.
It truly 60 would be ridiculous. I mean, we'd have to have a huge showing from Chicago, and the problem is the overlap in Chicago with I believe they have part of the Verve Cup that week, and a lot of the Chicago Tartan 10s, which is the biggest. You know, they've got 3 great big yacht clubs there with a lot of Tartan 10s. A big part of the class is right there in Chicago. So.
All right, I got to ask an obvious question, and it's probably one coming from a non-racing kind of guy. But if you have a national North American race, when they had the Opti race down in November and December for the Orange Bowl for all the little guys with the Optimus boats, they had 735 boats in the water. I understand they're 6 feet long and it's kids, and I understand that point. But if you just call yourself North American champion or world champion, there's 11 boats and they all come within a 20-mile radius of your yacht club.
Right.
Is that I know I've asked this before a couple of times. I don't want to seem condescending, but is that really a North American champion?
Yeah, that's a North American champion in a particular class in a given year at a given time. So you can't fit too high there. No, absolutely not. I mean, that Orange Bowl Regatta is the perfect example of how regattas should be run. I took my kids over the years, maybe 6 or 7 of the events, and it's right after Christmas. You've got 250 opties. You've got 100 420s and 150 lasers. It is an unbelievable event. And you win if you're in the top 10%, 15% in any of those classes. That kid, you better write his name down, because you're going to be racing against him the rest of your life, and he's going to be kicking the hell out of you.
Well, the nice part this year is they actually televised it, which is it's on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, they went to a kind of an interesting system with using drones, and as long as the drone could stay up with the battery, they were live. So they would bring it down and send it back up. So it was really kind of interesting, because it's the first time anybody had ever considered that, because you can't keep a helicopter up that long.
That's outstanding.
So we're looking at doing some stuff for the lake here, for some of the better races here, to try to do some of the same stuff with our race, and maybe not get maybe get the start, a little bit of the middle, and then certainly get the finish.
Right.
And I think it would be pretty cool if you watch. There's a channel out of a YouTube channel out of Annapolis that does weekly beer can racing, and they televise it. The difference is, in Annapolis, the 25 or 30 guys, that are racing in Annapolis are all gold medalists, world champions, Olympic member kind of guy. It's a serious fleet.
Wow.
But they do that, and it's kind of interesting. So,
oh, that's pretty special. I had no idea that they were doing that, but the thing is, you wonder how many people are going to log into something like that.
Well, it turns out the Orange Bowl, not very many. That was part of the problem.
Right.
So that becomes the issues. So what's up on the docket? Are you doing either Chicago Mac, or are you doing the Port Huron Mac?
I think I'm going to do the 2 Mac races. I know I'm slated already for the Port Huron race.
On what boat?
We're racing Abracadabra, good friends from Holland, Michigan, the Thinschmidt's father and son team, and Brad Boston runs their program. And we've had some difficulties getting a new rig last year in the Chicago Mac. They zippered open the rig, and so they've been replacing that rig. And Offshore Spars had some difficulties this spring, and I understand that the rig is now being completed, and hopefully everything is go live for that. And then right after that,
you were on that boat last year, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, same boat then.
Yep.
Okay.
Fantastic boat. It's a Kerr 43, Sydney 43, and dynamite, and a great group of guys, and we have a great time together. And therefore, I'm blessed that they invite me to come along year after year.
Last question, and we haven't really had a chance to discuss this, but when you campaign several boats and you've got a syndicate and you're doing the rest of it, this really is minor league baseball as compared to a guy like anybody that's got a single boat that does, Tuesday night beer league kind of thing, right? Is that a fair comparison?
We have a fairly active program that's supported by a large group of great team members, and I probably push it a little harder than most, because it's really the cost prohibitive side of this is I'm stealing the kids money, right? I'm spending it before they get a chance to get it. So I'm not the kind of program that can go and throw millions and millions of dollars at something. It's we're picking the boats right, we're picking the classes, we're choosing regattas that we really want to go do. And fortunately, in some of the classes, you're sailing boats that are have cost prohibitions on the number of sails that you can purchase. But surely this is a little different when you're racing 4 different types of boats. And I'm fortunate to also split those costs, at least on the 52 and the Melgus 32, with somebody else.
All right, this is definitely the last question, but is it the competition that drives you, or is it the publicity that helps the organization? Because you talk about, you've got a smile on your face and you want to be there before the bar closes. You can't race the way you race and not be competitive. So is it the competitive nature of this?
We're competitive. It's the competitive side of this, but the camaraderie, I think, is, there's a lot of laughing and giggling, and these guys are like my brothers, And in fact, one of my brothers competes with me toe to toe and sails with us on the 52. So the publicity means nothing to me. I do this almost begrudgingly. I know that you're doing things for our area, which is what is important for me. And it's maybe getting some kid that looks and says, hey, I can go sail around different parts of the country and down south and in the Caribbean, even though I'm from, Cleveland, Ohio, or Detroit, Michigan, or Chicago. And there's an opportunity to sail at all kinds of different levels with all kinds of fabulous sailors. And, again, having fun is really the more important part of this. There is no return publicity wise, doesn't benefit anybody's businesses. It doesn't.
No, I asked the question because when I go to SailGP, I get all the corporate answers.
Yeah.
So I ask tough questions, and I have to wait till after hours to ask those questions. And if I'm watching this and I'm a competitor, I can look at you and go, oh my God, I understand this. And if I don't know about the sport and I'm watching this, I can learn that it's not just a bunch of rich guys sailing. It's something they absolutely unadulterated love and can't get enough of.
Yeah.
But I can't say that. You can, because you're the guy doing it, if that makes any sense.
Trying to explain to somebody else what our sport is, round the buoys, long distance, ratings, all that stuff, you can tell by 5 minutes into the conversation, their eyes glaze over and they start looking at you going, how much do you get paid and how much do you win for these races? And I'm, we generally don't even get a little silver pickle dish. We're doing it to have fun.
I get it. And if we were discussing ski racing, my world, we could spend 2 hours talking about wax, and the only guys that would be interested would be you and I. I get it.
You got it.
All right. So next race coming up before we finish up. Next race for you guys coming up.
So next one for us is we're doing Cleveland Race Week right now. We're in the middle of that. We're sailing the Mogus 32 tonight, Saturday and Sunday. The boat will be dormant for a little bit. Then we'll do the MAC. And then we've got a North American Championship in the Tartan 10 and a North Americans in the J70. And we were able to get a bid for the World Championship of the J70. And then right after that, we're into the 52 up into November. We'll sail St. Pete to Lauderdale, which is a re-enamored or revisited SORC classic ocean race, 405 miles, end of November, I believe. And hopefully we'll get a good group of contingent coming from the Gulf of Mexico and Texas, but we'd like to see, 40, 50 boats in that. And that's kind of the next couple of events.
Okay. Well, listen, we'll catch up with you hopefully in Port Huron for that race, and
you bet.
Spend some time and find out where you are. We're going to, in the meantime, have a number of shows between now and then, but
Great.
Appreciate your time. Best of luck, and hope you have a great rest of the Cleveland Race Week.
Thanks, Greg. Take care.
Thanks, Trey.
Want to thank Trey for coming aboard and talking to us and spending some time talking about the hooligan program and all that goes with that. We'll keep up with him as the show goes on through the summer. I think that'll be a good addition, much like we did with Nagy Mana. We'll talk to him next week about his great loop adventure. We also wanted to catch up and make sure that Brian and Kirsten know we appreciate their time talking about sailing in Marquette, Lake Superior. I had a chance to have a conversation with somebody delivering a boat coming back this past week. Water temperature in the middle of Lake Superior, at least I was told secondhand, was 38 degrees. So if you've got a life jacket, make sure you've got AIS on it, or you could have yourself some problems, because 35, 36, 37 degree water in the middle of June is just too cold. Hopefully next week we bring you some Queen Cup results, and we want to be able to catch up with Michael Kirkman, Dougie Collins, Sophie Hackett, and Ryan Hexter, talk to them about their experiences finishing fourth in the U.S. lacrosse. I want to keep saying lacrosse, U.S. sailing match races over at Sheboygan, and more importantly, receiving the standing ovation they got for the Nick Scandone Sportsmanship Award. I'm sure that the parents are happy, and hopefully we get a chance to have that conversation with them next week. So that being the case, we will catch up with you guys and have another good week, and we'll see you next Monday.